Hi everyone, my name is Laura. I am a polyglot who studies 5 languages and I love to travel. And this is my channel, Languages with Laura, where I discuss language learning tips and traveling. Improving your speaking. Now, the first thing I want to say before we get started with any of this is having an accent is not a bad thing. As long as you are pronouncing the words and you can be understood, having a bit of an accent is not the end of the world. You're a foreigner. You can't help it sometimes. It's okay. I know a lot of times when I learn languages, I want to sound as native as possible and to sound as fluent as possible, and sometimes that can kind of get in the way and be a little discouraging. That, oh, I don't say it exactly right, or this sound is difficult for me to say, so I might not get it right every single time. But really, at the end of the day, if you're understood, it's okay. And one example I will say of this is there is a sound in Arabic, the rain and the rain. I cannot say those for the life of me, but I can still be understood when I speak to native Arabic speakers. And a lot of times they're very understanding that, yeah, I've never made that sound before. So of course I would struggle with it a bit, but they give me grace and that's okay because we're just here to talk with each other, right? And build community. So just want to say, first thing, having an accent is not bad. But along the lines of accents, sometimes it can be really fun to choose an accent that you are going to try and replicate in your speaking. Different than a dialect. Choosing a dialect is choosing the type of language that you're going to learn, but also choosing an accent can be something different. For example, I have grown up learning Spanish pretty much my entire life. My very first Spanish teacher was from Mexico. My second Spanish teacher was from Puerto Rico. After that, I've had mostly American teachers, and some of them chose the Spain accent, which is fine, but I told them, hey, that's not the accent that I've been practicing. Is it all right if I continue practicing my Central American accent? And they're like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. They don't really care. It's Spanish. As long as I'm speaking Spanish, they don't care. But it can be kind of fun if you want to learn a Spanish accent, or if you want to learn an Argentinian accent or a Cuban accent or whatever. Choosing an accent can also be a lot of fun because it is completely up to you what accent you want to learn. I have had students that I was teaching English to say, I want to learn the British accent, or I want to learn the Australian accent. And while I say, I'm American, so all I can do is the American accent, or I can do an English accent, I can do my best to replicate one. But reality is I would always suggest them to watch TV shows and movies to really understand that accent and look up pronunciation guides for those countries. Otherwise, I did a lot of help with American accents, and I have a Midwest accent. I'm from Michigan, and so that is my natural accent. I talk in my nose. I say, oop. I'm just gonna scoot right past you. That is my accent. So anyway, now I'm getting off topic. Accents could almost be a whole other video, which if you're interested in, let me know. I'll make an accents video. To improve your speaking, know what you want to sound like, but be okay with having a foreigner's accent. Now that we have that out of the way, I'm gonna share some exercises that you can do to help improve your speaking. And a lot of these are gonna be kind of on your own, because while it is amazing to talk with another person and they can give you a lot of feedback on your pronunciation, on your speaking fluidity, everything like that, what else can you do outside of talking to another human being to improve your speaking skills? Especially since, again, when I was teaching English and I asked my students, what do you want to work on? What is your weakest point? The number one answer they always said, without fail, was speaking. Because they listen to their teachers talk to them. They listen to music and they listen to TV and so do I when I'm learning a language. And they can read the news or read books, and they do writing exercises in class and whatever, but they always say that they're most intimidated by speaking. So I did a lot of brainstorming on different exercises and activities to do to just encourage you to speak more, because really you're only going to get better at speaking by speaking, because you can do all the listening you want, but that's not going to make your tongue, that's not going to make your throat, that's not going to make your embouchure practice. You need to speak in order to get better at your speaking. So hopefully some of these exercises can make you feel more comfortable about speaking on your own and getting used to the language, so that when you are speaking with another person, it is more comfortable for you. First thing I'm going to say is repetition. This was a strategy that my Mandarin teacher drilled into us in high school so much. She would have us say a word over and over and over again. And part of it was because Mandarin is a tonal language, and she wanted to make sure that we could really be clear with our tones. But her other thing, she was obsessed with speed, making sure that we could speak quickly and not take forever, which I appreciate so much from her. But the fact that she made me repeat it over and over again, like right there, she would say, go, 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 again and again and again and again, in this, like, just right up together over and over and over again, so that even when I speak Mandarin now, I haven't spoken Mandarin in quite a long time. It is a language I want to get back into, but I just haven't had the time yet. But when I do bring out my Mandarin every once in a while, it is muscle memory. I couldn't even sit there and be like, I don't think I remember the tone for this word, but if I speak it, I will say it correctly, because she drilled it into me so strongly. Again, when I speak, it sounds okay. So I would always say repetition. Start off slow, make sure that you're going over your trouble spots until you feel comfortable with it, and then you can work on either getting faster, or even if speed is not your goal, which it shouldn't always be your goal, but just that you can say the word without any hiccups. I had to do that a lot for Russian and German, because some of those long words, reading it and then saying it, I had to say it over and over again. So just repeat it until you can say it multiple times without any issues. But then too, with repetition, you want to make sure that you're not just doing it in the moment, but that you're doing it every day. So maybe every day for a week, say the troublesome words, so that hopefully by the end of the week you can say it with no issue, and then you've got it. Number 2, read out loud. Find something that you're reading, whether it's a book, a newspaper, phrases, even phrases that you wrote down, but just reading out loud can make you more comfortable with speaking, because you're speaking it, but you think you're just reading. You're reading it and you're understanding it, and that's great. And if that's something you're comfortable with, then you just translate it into speaking. Why not, right? I mean, I grew up having to do that with English. That was like our assignment, was we had to go home and we had to read aloud. I hate doing it, but it's so incredibly helpful. Number 3 is something called shadow speaking. And that is where you are listening to something and repeating it afterwards. Now, you can do it where you listen to a whole phrase and then you repeat the phrase, especially if you're a beginner. Listen to a word, repeat the word. No matter what you're using to help you learn the language, if you're using a language learning app, or if you're listening to a podcast, or you're watching a YouTube video, whatever, if they're speaking words, repeat the words. Even if that's not the point of the exercise, just do it. Just repeat the words. It will help you so much with pronunciation, especially if you're listening to a native speaker say it, and then you can say it afterwards. And then as you're getting more and more comfortable with the language, as you are becoming more advanced, you can start doing it faster, as in they start a sentence and you start the sentence, and you're almost speaking simultaneously. This is really good if you want to become an interpreter, because sometimes interpreters will need to work so quickly that they are listening and speaking at the same time. This is a really good exercise to train your brain to start thinking about that. Even though all you're doing is saying exactly what you're hearing, you're not translating it. Like, don't worry about translating it yet, but just for speaking practice, to listen and then speak it. And then that way too, it can help you with trouble sounds, and you can go back and listen to it over and over again and then speak it over and over again. It's that same repetition that I was talking about before. Tip number 4, I absolutely love doing this, and I do it all the time, is talk to whatever you're listening to. Okay, now that might need some explanation. What I mean by that is if I'm watching a TV show or a movie or even listening to a podcast, I'll respond as if we're having a conversation. Or I'll put myself in the TV show and pretend that I'm a character. My name is Laura and I'm now all of a sudden in this TV show. If a character says something, what would be my reaction to it? And how would I express that in the target language? It's fun, it's entertaining, it's probably vocabulary you're gonna use, because if you're watching TV shows, it might be nice to talk, like when someone asks you what your hobby is and you say, I like watching TV. What do you like to watch? Oh, the show called blah, blah, blah. What's it about? There you go. You're using the vocab. So, and especially like when it's conversations with characters, I can either do the repetition thing of the last tip, or I can do my own sentences, and then that way I'm expressing myself and my opinions while getting speaking practice in a low pressure environment. I'm just talking to the TV. Yeah, I do that a lot, actually. Number 5, if you like having someone to talk to, like I was saying with talking to the TV, I also recommend talking to a pet or an object if you don't have a pet, or even a plant, whatever you have around you, whatever you're comfortable with. But I like talking to something. I will take one of my cats and I will hold them and I will talk to them. Or they'll be sitting there sleeping or just looking at the window, not paying attention to me at all. And I'll talk with them. I'll have a conversation. I'll tell them about my day. I'll tell them what I want to be doing or what I'm thinking about. Whatever comes to mind. It's a great excuse to use the new vocabulary that I studied earlier that day. I can tell them, this is what I studied. But talking to my pets or my plants even, I also talk to my succulents. I really do. And even a couple of times I will talk in the car, either at other cars or to my car, because my car is a rickety old, please survive the next year type of car. Like, it's so old, it's been through so much. But just talking to other things. And then again, it's a very low pressure environment because you can take your time to form the sentences or practice pronunciation, but you feel like you're talking to something rather than just talking into oblivion, which is also not a bad thing. And actually is probably going to be my tip number 6. Tip number 6 has 2 parts to it. One, I would say talking to a mirror. So when I listen to native speakers, or like especially when I look at my professors or other native speakers, I sometimes watch how they are moving their mouth. If it's something that they move very long or very wide, or where is the sound coming from, the front of the mouth or the back of the mouth or from the throat. And so then I can go in front of a mirror and watch myself speak and try and imitate it. So if I'm making the same mouth movements, hopefully that'll help with my pronunciation. I learned very quickly as a kid to mimic perfectly. I would hear my Spanish teacher say a phrase and I would mimic it exactly. Even the parts that are not important to the language, but like that's how I got really good at the intonation or at the progression of a sentence and certain sounds and everything like that. But like talking to a mirror so you can watch yourself and kind of not compare, but just see how you're doing. You can see yourself speaking. Now, another thing I will say, and this is something I've really only done with English, even though I am a native English speaker. I did forensics in high school, which is like a speech giving competition. I gave speeches in a competition for fun. And the number one thing that all the forensics kids, all of us did for our speech giving competition is talk to a wall. I kid you not. You would walk around the school that was hosting the tournament and you would see kids just a couple feet away, 2 feet away from a wall, giving their presentation. I mean, obviously they would be doing choreographed hand movements and gesturing to non-existent props, but talking to a wall. Now, this is why I would say I prefer doing a mirror when it comes to language learning. Again, so I can watch myself and I feel less awkward, because when I'm talking to a wall, I am thinking very specifically about my rehearsed script. But if you don't like looking at yourself, then just talk to a wall and think about how you're moving your face. Think about what you're saying, how clearly you're saying it. It's a good place to just kind of get out of your head, but reflect. I know it sounds really silly. I know some of these sound really funny, like talking to pets or plants or inanimate objects and talking to yourself in a mirror and to a wall. But honestly, it's a non-pressure filled environment to just practice speaking. And you can do it for a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long you want, however long you have time for. If you are driving somewhere and you arrive a couple minutes early, just sit in your car and talk in your target language for a couple minutes. You're getting speaking practice in, right? And that's what this is all about, right? Tip number 7 I have is to record yourself. You don't have to record yourself with a visual, although I do think that is a good idea for the similar reasons of talking into a mirror, is to be able to see how you're doing. But if you don't want to do that, you can also just do an audio recording of yourself and listen it back to it. Have a little conversation, or even listen to a video, repeat it, record yourself, and kind of compare. Where is an area that you struggle? Is there a certain sound that happens over and over that you struggle with? Is there a certain word that you stumble? Sometimes it's a lot easier to catch it when you're going back and listening to it. But at the same time, if you just do a recording, don't worry about like stumbling, and just know that you'll go back and listen to it again, even if you hate the sound of your own voice, because I hate the sound of my voice, and I make videos online. I hate the sound of my voice. So that's just something you would have to get over. But just don't worry, sit there, read a paragraph, have a conversation, whatever you want. Don't worry about how you sound. And then when you go back and listen to yourself, then you can pick out the troublesome areas. And this will help you speak with like fluidity, even if you're not trying to be perfect. This was extremely helpful when I was preparing for like speaking exams, because in a speaking exam, if I stumble, I can't get caught up in that. I need to just keep moving forward. And even when I'm talking to someone casually and having a conversation with a native speaker, stumbling, just move on, or like quickly correct yourself and move on. Like, you don't need to sit there and fester for a long time until either you get it right or you give up. So that's what recording yourself can help you with. It's just speaking, being as fluid as you can, not worrying about it, and then you can worry about going back and practicing the troublesome bits. I hope that made sense. And then the 8th and final tip that I have for you in today's Improve Your Speaking video is music. Especially at the beginning of learning a language, well, and honestly at any point in learning a language, but whether you're at the beginner or you're at an advanced, I highly recommend listening to music, and then you can sing along. You can sing a couple words that you realize you can just listen to the sounds and try and mimic the sounds. Again, it's that mimicking that I love doing. That's how I learn, is by mimicking the sounds, or even just a rhythm speaking. I can't explain how this has helped me, but it has, to just have a rhythm to speak to. It doesn't have to be too quick, but you can do it in whatever language feels comfortable. And so you can do a rhythm speak, or you can sing along with music, and then that's fun. You know, it's enjoyable to listen to music, and I love singing along to music. So why not get some speaking and pronunciation practice while I'm at it, right? Speaking of all the speaking practice, I think my voice is kind of on the edge of it for today, so we're going to wrap up that video there. Thank you all for watching. If you have any tips, feel free to leave them down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you click the subscribe button. I make videos every other Monday about language learning and about traveling, so if those interest you, then feel free to stick around. But again, thank you very much for watching. Adios.